Dr. Kale, thank you so much for your time. Clearly, we have to focus on the just released trade report. It's always a very valuable source of data to help us appreciate the trends and the progress we're making in intra-Africa trade. So what would you say are the key messages from the reports that's just been released?
Yes, so thank you for having me. And yes, I don't see it as just an accumulation of data. I think data is only important related to the insights you preview. So when you go through the report, I think one of the key messages that come out is that Africa's resilience has maintained. Throughout the 2019-2020 COVID pandemic, throughout various commodity price shocks, high inflation, all the geopolitical tensions, Africa's growth has continued to get better over the last 5 years. So what we are seeing is the resilience remains. We're expecting that resilience to continue. It shows that the current global economic challenges, escalating trade wars, is going to have minimal impacts on Africa. Ironically, the lack of integration in the global system, which was often stated as a weakness, is actually now proving to be a buffer and benefiting African countries. So I think resilience is the key message. African countries also are beginning to understand they're trading more with themselves, they're speaking more with themselves. I think they're beginning to understand the message that has been there for many years, that Africa's development will depend on talking more with yourselves, trading more with themselves, investing more in themselves, improving the ability of African multilateral financial institutions like Afreximbank, AADB, and so on to be able to provide financing. So the traditional rules is not working for them. You are hearing things of Africa having its own rating agencies. You are seeing them strengthen their multilateral financial institutions because they can see that the Bretton Woods institutions are not benefiting them. You are seeing them decide to trade more with themselves because their traditional trading partners, it's not working. You are seeing them trying to invest more with themselves. You are seeing them introducing payment systems. They can talk more with themselves. So that message that Africa is only going to develop if it is dependent on, if it is done as a group, as a team, and we have to rely less on extra-African forces. It's becoming clearer, and that's part of what is building that resilience going forward.
It's also an opportunity to better appreciate the impact of the AfCFTA. So, absolutely. What would you say this report is telling us about the impact on AfCFTA or intra-African?
Well, intra-African trade is improving. We are not where we want to be yet. Last year, between 2023 and 2024, for example, intra-African trade for the second year running grew by 12%. Currently, intra-African trade is about 15%, so it's still significantly less than what we want it to be. But what we are seeing is a strong growth. 5-6 years ago, intra-African trade was like 7-8%. So to go from that to 12% is actually a movement in the right direction. There was a recent report using Nigeria as an example, and this cuts across many African countries, while Nigeria traded more within the continent than outside the continent. That's the first time in Nigeria's history. And you have several other countries in the continent doing the same, where a larger proportion of their trading is within Africa. Not all of them, but you have pockets. I think Cameroon, some other countries. So that is the trend. They're also using more of the payment. The PAPSS, for example, grew by over 1,000% transactions. So you are seeing that shift away from traditional trading partners and systems to move more to one that is more Africa-centric. It's not yet where we are trying to get to, but the trends, looking at all the data, is moving in that direction. I think that's what the report is saying, that it's working. And the message is we need to stay the course, keep faith those reforms, and continue that progress.
Quite often, the whole theme around infrastructure and how it's not enabling trading off in the African context continues to pop up. But are we seeing moves that are really catalyzing trading, maybe some regions, some countries, where it is clear that once we can begin to make that investment in infrastructure, it really catalyzes trade?
There's been significant improvement in exactly what you have said. Again, when the system is used to a structure for many decades, you can't change it overnight. So what we are seeing is a gradual process. I mentioned PAPSS. You are seeing investments in special economic zones. You are seeing investments in value chains, in pockets of value chains across Africa. It is a gradual process. You are seeing efforts to make African countries understand each other better. For example, the Mansa platform, which is essentially a due diligence platform. You are seeing AfPay that is introduced by Afreximbank. The objective is to not use the corresponding banking system we are used to. So instead of the usual corresponding banking system that we have, where we have to go to a Citibank or wherever, it's been handled by Afreximbank. So we are pulling ourselves away from those historical structures that have never really benefited us. You are seeing, you're having conversation on the Lobito corridor and things of that nature, how we are going to link African countries in terms of infrastructure to facilitate transport and movement of goods across our country. It's not so you are seeing pockets of that happening, and the idea is to escalate to increase this kind of thing, so that by the time we are done, might take some while, you will see that Africa has linked, infrastructure speaking, linked itself across. If I want to move a good from Nigeria to Egypt, there's actually a route to do that. If I want to move from, you know what I mean? So there's work on that in certain areas. I think in terms of progress, some regions are doing better than others. That's understandable. It depends on the level of, development of the particular country. Some regions are still moving slower than others. Some are better, more ready than others. There's more traction in the Southern African region. In the Eastern African region, there's less traction. The Central African region is very good traction, always have been. The Northern African region, those countries are more in sync. So yes, there are some regions that are moving faster than others. There are some moving slower, but what you see that for every region, no matter the pace, they're all moving in the right direction. Just that some are stronger than others.
Before I let you go, I want us to really just touch briefly. I wonder to what extent the report captures the informal trade happening in Africa, because it's huge. If you look at West Africa, for example, the trade across the Nigerian borders is very significant. Many point to that. I want to hear your thoughts about the trends that we're seeing there, and potentially how close we are to formalizing that, such that we're truly capturing the value of that trade.
Well, the first thing is to get the data. And to do that, there was a project that my division is in charge of, is the informal cross-border trade, where we're trying to now do exactly that, estimate the volume and value of cross-border trade across African countries. That report has been completed, it's currently being validated. So that's the first stage, to get a sense of what is going on across the borders, across African countries. Once you quantify them, you have details of sectors and people involved in that trade, then you can now create policies, incentives to bring them into the formal sector. But the first thing to do, if you don't know who they are, what they do, you can't really help them. So to get that data, we spent a lot of money over the last 2 years actually trying to get that.
So should we have that data now, or is that something
we have that
releasing shortly?
data now? The report is very well, like I said, but you have this odds. But you have to say to applicant direct investment.
Because I'm sure many people would love to capture that data if they can too.
Getting more data on how Africa works has been one of the biggest challenges we have had. And without that data, you can't really do a lot of things. So that report is ready. Like I said, it's currently going through validation. We are hoping that within 1 or 2 months, we'll get through all the, when you have an African report, it has to be across African countries. You have to expose it to different African countries just to look at it and get the endorsement. So that's where we're currently at. But the report has been done. I believe very strongly, maybe I'm biased, but I believe very strongly that the report was actually done very well. The information was quite interesting and very illuminating. I think when we publish that report, it's something that's going to interest a lot of African countries.
No, I'm really excited to hear that, because it's so important to really drive home the point that data availability catalyzes so much.
Well, I'm biased, so you will not hear any objections from me. But yes, absolutely.
And so we look forward to that. Now, we thank the Afreximbank to also spearheading that effort as well. It's another very important contribution that Afreximbank is making to driving more trade on the continent.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your.
Thank you very much.